So welcome back. Very, very happy to introduce Niti who is the head of culture at Straumann. I have had the pleasure of working with you for 9 or 10, 9 years now. The Straumann culture development journey has been a shining example from my perspective, not only in terms of the commitment that the organization has taken to develop and shape their culture, the commitment and role of leadership, but what you're about to see is really one of the best examples of positive, sustainable culture development that I have seen. By the way, if you'd like to read the initial journey of this organization, you can read all about it in Creating Constructive Cultures. Thankfully, this is one of the case studies that was published, and I'm very excited to hear the continuation of the story and how that journey has continued today. So thank you so much, Niti, for taking the time today to share. I know everyone's looking very much forward to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my name is Niti Khosla. I have the privilege to talk a little bit about the culture journey of Straumann Group. I can be very honest here. This is the effort of a lot of people and people who've gone ahead of me. It's just not me. So it's only been the last 3.5 years. My background, very quickly, I have spent 20 years in finance. I was a banker. And I was global head of finance. I found a job in Switzerland as global head of finance for a logistics company, low margin, bottom of the food chain. And then at some point between marriage and kids, I asked for a flip of career to strategy or quality, and I landed in HR because my first development program was finance for non-finance. From there, I went into big pharma to experience what big pharma feels like. So I've spent 5 years in Novartis, and I've done a full circle back to my first boss in HR, who may be online. He was my boss in Panalpina, and he called me one day and said, "Do you want to come talk to our CEO in Straumann?" And I said, "For what role?" And he said, "Head of culture." And my exact phrase was, "What the fuck is that?" So you'll figure out with my language as well as my style, I will say it like it is. This is not a role that is commonly defined. I've started to see culture being added to people's titles, but I'm privileged to hold a role called head of culture. Now, what do? We can probably discuss that in a little more detail if you want. I don't like presenting just to a screen or just to people not talking to me, so I'm very happy for interruptions. As a person, I say what I think. I'm working on that. That's one of my areas of development, and you can imagine what my LWS profile would look like. I'm mother of 3 now, 2 dogs, Basel for last 21 years. Okay, so that's me. Let's dive into it. This is a slide or a quotation that Maya Angelou, which was adopted in the first culture journey. We have 2 phases. We have culture journey 1.0, and now we are in 2.0. I took over the 2.0, so this was a phrase that very much underlined the sentiment we were creating in the organization, and deeply inspired our CEO at that time, as well as the leadership team, as they went about trying to shift the mindset of the company. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. If we go to the definition, and I've just broken all the definitions that John talks about, because this is the way we describe culture. When I came in, there was this need to try and unravel and make it simple for people to understand. And this is the simplest definition we have adopted since the last 3.5 years. And culture is happening here. It's happening in meetings. It happens in cafeterias. It happens, next to the water cooler. It happens with customers. So culture is how we do things around here. And in doing so, we've actually been able to think about it slightly differently. Give me a sense of what do you see, either online or in the room. What do you see in this picture? Tell me what you see. It's no catch question, okay? Just tell me what you see. You see fish.
A lot of food.
A lot of fish. What else do you think?
All moving in one direction, except maybe for two.
Okay. I didn't notice that. Yeah, but okay. Good. What else do you see?
So I see fish swimming around.
Okay.
Probably.
All right. So I'm going to kind of, and you're going to feel really mad at me at this point because I'm saying, why didn't anybody see the water? You saw all the fish, but you didn't see the water. And that in itself is very telling. So when we think about culture, this is the way we've described it in order to really bring it alive through the organization in the last 3.5 years. We've described it as the water we swim in, the wind that blows through everything we do. And think about it, if the weather is changing in the office, you feel it. When the weather is perfect, you don't even notice it, you just get on with it. When it's amazing, you feel it. When it's miserable, you feel it. And that really affects, and it shapes how we do things around here. And there is this sense of making this tangible for our people to understand it in how we describe it and why it matters. There's been a lot of effort that we have made. The other piece, and this is a quotation straight from my CEO, who, by the way, is the biggest supporter of culture. And I'll talk about him in a second. It says, when culture feels right, even the impossible seems possible. And that's the story of Straumann, which is quite incredible because we are growing. Just to give you a sense, we are now maybe we probably will go closer to $2.5 billion in revenues. We're the world's, we carry the name of having the best implants in the world, premium implants. So think about buying a new car. That's what you're going to put in your mouth if you use a Straumann implant. We have expanded to other product lines, and we have challenger brands. We have what we call aligners, those invisible things that people put to straighten. So we're in the business of tooth straightening, tooth replacement, tooth alignment. These are what we do in a very simplistic way. And our customer profile is also changing. I'll talk about how that influences the way we act. So if I look at the journey that we've taken over the last 3.5 years, and I'll go back into history a little bit more, there were a few things that we had to kind of course correct. And a couple of things, when I walked in, what you don't have is a box that is there, and I show it internally, is that culture is not owned by HR. It is not owned by the CEO. It is not a poster on the wall. It is not words on a wall. It's not pretty things that we tick off and say we've done it. But there's this whole piece around the way we talk about culture is how we do things around here, that is owned by each one of us. And so very simply, if I have a nasty conversation in a meeting, or I see something happening to a colleague that I don't really appreciate, or it contradicts my values, I'm going to say the culture here sucks. And that's the easiest phrase for us as human beings who work in systems, organizational systems, to pass off that remark. Or the culture in my team sucks. I mean, those are phrases that you hear very often. So it's how we act and feel every day. It's what's happening around us. But it requires us to be intentional. You slip up and something cracks. So how do you constantly keep this reminder about being intentional every day? And it's based on beliefs. And we called it beliefs, and there's a background to that. And when I first presented the journey, we had a set of core behaviors, which we have flipped to beliefs. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Everybody still with me? Okay. Questions? No? Okay. And if there's something online, please just put in the chat or come off mute and shout at us and we'll take it. This is, I was on a call with my CEO, and he was, we are a little bit of the darling of investors. Not so in the last month and a half. But in general, we're like one of those trend shares. We've shown some amazing results, and there's a lot of interest in who we are. And this was a statement. He was taking a call on culture. He keeps talking about a high performance player learner culture. And the question was, what is this deep belief? Why do you believe in it? There were 36 different analysts on the other side. And this is a quotation, this is a quote he made, and I scribbled furiously as he made it. Our unique high performance player learner culture is our competitive advantage and a growth driver for us. The competition can copy our products, replicate our services and our setup, but imitating our culture is challenging, if not impossible. And that's the degree of how important it is for us to safeguard and continue to guardrail culture as we go forward, as we continue to grow. Just to give you a sense, we are hiring almost 20% of our workforce every year. So we're also growing rapidly. So dilution of culture is something that is super top of mind for us. How do we bring people on board? How do we continue to stretch across the different geographies? And so there's a lot of conversation that happens around that. So how did we kickstart this journey? So I'll share a little bit about how we kickstarted it, why we kickstarted it. I think, as John said, the case study brutally describes that you would never have wanted to join us back in 2013, 2014. It was quite a horrible culture, but this is what our measurement looked like. We were extremely oppositional, extremely competitive with a high degree of defensive behaviors. There were silos in the organization, and the case study does a really good job of drilling down about winners and losers, about who needed to show up, how, there were silos between the divisions. We had acquired some new companies. We'd acquired a challenger brand compared to a premium brand, and with the fear that we would cannibalize share. So there's a lot of talk. When you came to meetings, you had to practice what you would say before you could go back to the field. It was a very HQ focused, and our previous CEO and our current CEO had some pretty detailed, gory interviews in this case study, which if you're interested, you can read. But I think this was the measure. But how did we even get to the OCI? Why did we go to the OCI? At some point or the other, we brought in a consultant who John knows very well, or may know and knows some of his people. And he, we had gone through a year where we had the lowest profitability, the lowest margins, lowest share price, and we had a new CEO coming in. And while we were able to fix the margin problem a bit and stabilize the financials, what we realized, and I think my CEO uses the phrase, you cannot use a crisis management style to be able to drive growth or drive, positive thinking or empowerment or really encourage people to go out there and conquer, new territories. So they started with this consultant recommended, why don't you do a measurement of culture? Measurement of culture told us that we were extremely competitive and oppositional. And we started with a cascade. So the leadership team, the CEO and his team did the OCI. They did the LWS or the LSI at that time, which is the Leadership Styles Inventory. And they transparently started to share who they were. One of the phrases that they used to describe themselves was that they were an arrogant bunch of overachievers. And with that came certain workshops. We used to, simple things like giving feedback. We do musical chairs feedback, what I appreciate about you, what I think would improve our collaboration more, or what would make you more effective. And he often says, if you hear it 5 times, there must be truth when someone is saying, I don't listen. So you start to reflect. So there were certain workshops that were designed. There were 2 foundational concepts that crept into our vocabulary, which still are extremely strong. One of them is the I, we, and the it. Basically being the I and we in service of the it. You cannot achieve any it if the I is not aligned, or if there is a conflict between the I and the we, if I am not feeling comfortable with you, the we is not working, how the hell are we going to deliver an outcome on the it? So it was as simple as I and we in service of the it. The other concept was clear learner, and it ties in beautifully with the circumflex, because it talks about above the line and below the line. And it's very much this security and satisfaction oriented. What kind of mindset can we adopt? So we came up with core behaviors. We, created a lot of empowerment. At that time, thinking was go out, make a mistake. It's okay. It doesn't need to be 100% right. 80% is good enough. 60% is good enough. But everything started with the I. So there was this constant, teams after teams were doing their LSIs and trying to understand who they were. And there were workshops that were created that teams were going through together. What was the result when Marco left? He left the company in a pretty good shape. This was just pre-COVID. And I think the share price went through an appreciation of 600%. We had regained our position as a market leader, and Straumann was kind of back in focus. But so this is my simplest slide for telling us a journey that took close to 6 years, 6 to 7 years of the work that happened. Now, was everything, rose-colored glasses? No. There were things that we could have done better, and there were areas, depending if your leader was not as committed, and things that maybe didn't roll out as smoothly as they should have. And that was the circumstance in which I came in to the organization. Questions, thoughts? All right, so I said we talked about the magic triangle, which we call the it, we, and I, was one of the concepts that we very strongly put in place. Everything, there's a lot of exercises we do. For example, we have a pulse check that sits in almost every program of ours. And you have 2 questions on the I, 2 questions on the we, 2 questions on the it. You have questions in the way we design workshops. We think about it like this, even today. Clear learner is very much part of our vocabulary of everybody in the organization. And it's always surprises me how easily it comes. And I want to talk, while John was talking, clear learner's mentality, I want to bring it to life. I have a short film which Conscious Leadership has put together, but I'm going to give you a small quotation from Viktor Frankl, which gets put through. And it says, between the stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. In our response lies our growth and freedom. And that is a phrase that very much underlines the concept of play learner. Play learner is also a concept that was introduced to us through a book called Conscious Business. And it's been written by a gentleman called Fred Kaufman. Fred Kaufman was the global head of learning for LinkedIn. He was also advising Microsoft on the Aristotle project. And he wrote this book where he talks about being a player learner versus having a victim mentality or a no victim mentality. It's like a kid who comes in and says, the toy broke, or, there was too much traffic, so sorry, I'm late. And the question is, how can that same statement be rephrased in the context of choice and being response able? We say player learners are response able. They're able to choose the response to the situation they are in. And that's very much the thinking. Let's quickly and I have a sip of water. When I joined, this film inspired me, and I think it's a really accurate description of what player learner is. And then I'll show you how we define it in a bit, but let's go. And now you maybe want to press play over there, because I remember, yeah, just press play.
Location. Brought to you by the Conscious Leadership Group. Find them on the web at www.conscious.is. Animation by Graham Franks, www.grahamfranks.com. One question that conscious leaders ask themselves over and over is, where am I? To support leaders in locating themselves as they ask the question, where am I? We offer this tool. A line. A simple black line. At any moment, all leaders and all people are either above the line or below the line. Our location describes how we're being with what is occurring in our life right now. If we are above the line, we are open, curious, and committed to learning. If we are below the line, we are closed, defensive, and committed to being right. Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, they believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, they believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? One thing to know as you consider this question: we're hardwired to go below the line. Literally, our brain is programmed to perceive threat, and when it does, a chemical cocktail courses through our veins, and we go below the line. This reaction was designed to help us survive in the presence of a real threat to our physical survival. An issue for modern-day leaders is that often our brains can't tell the difference between a threat to our physical survival and a threat to our ego or identity. We react and get defensive when we experience a threat to our ego. So in many ways, being below the line is natural and normal. But when we are below the line, we're not in a state, literally brain state, of high creativity, collaboration, innovation, and relational connection. We're simply trying to survive. Leaders today can't thrive if they're in survival mode. So the first activity of conscious leadership is location, location, location. In this now moment, where am I? Telling ourselves and others the truth about our current location begins the great conversation.
So this video has been super inspiring for us to even explain what play learner work, what is below the line. And you will often hear a phrase in the office which will say, hey, that remark was below the line. And it's kind of deeply embedded. Sorry, the question.
No, it was just an aha.
Okay. Yeah. Let's just keep going. I need to go. So when I joined the organization and we were starting our next phase of the culture journey, we did the OCI again. This is 7 years. This was back in 2021. Similar population size, about 15% of our population, and we saw a radical shift. We have seen a shift to humanistic encouraging and self-actualizing. And if you see, even within the 50th percentile, and if I actually use this graph to actually suggest all the categories that had to shrink, which is in the aggressive and defensive styles, did shrink and came within the 50th or came close to the 50th percentile norm. Whereas all the categories that needed to expand, which were the constructive styles, did expand. And so at least in John's analysis and helping us look at the results, and he felt that this has been one of the more sustainable sustainable shifts he has seen. It's taken the time it's needed to do. But then we were faced with this, so what next? Because the whirlwind in the organization was asking us, okay, so what are we doing next? What's coming? And so we had to really think about the whole process. What we definitely were very clear, we haven't done our ideal. We're using the synergistics ideal, because we feel that if we do it, everybody wants to work in an ideal organization. So it's not so. The reason I was pushing John about his global cultural new ideal that he's talking about is it allows a certain degree of what my people will say is the red behavior. And somehow, sometimes the organization seems to justify why having that competitiveness or that opposition is good. And I think if I had to replace one of those with what is here, would be more realistic. If I was to do it the next time, we do hope in the next year or two we will run it again to see how we progress. We don't we just use this as a signpost. Everything else is then taken and adapted in our language to get it to embed in the organization. We have never asked anybody to become a guru in OCI. We are not suggesting, we don't even like the nomenclature of red, blue, and green. We are very careful of not labeling people. It's superbly important for us that whatever we do is the language we do it in. It should not be, we shouldn't want to clutter it with any theoretical models. So it just overlays our thinking, but it's very much part and has been foundational to the way we think about it. Okay, how am I doing in time? Thank you. Then I think this is too much and you could, but I think it was also super important for us to define what does high performance player learner culture mean for us? And we were very clear, it's too important to be left a chance. And it's not about being nice to each other. It was very clear. We want to have the difficult conversations. We want to be able to discuss and debate because we need that. We need that perspective. But clearly psychological safety was a big piece of it. It's safe to express your view. And it's a measure we track. Where our people feel accountable, and this is very much part of being the player learner. I feel accountable, I feel responsible for really driving and passionate about our purpose and really delivering performance always above expectations. That's something high performance is defined as. Or we feel respected and we're recognized both internally and externally. And we measure it. We use Glint to measure it. To supplement OCI, we have an annual Glint survey. We just closed ours, and I'll talk about that in a second. So 2021, some of the formatting went haywire while I was sending it to you. So 2021, we did a massive exercise of rethinking our strategy, our purpose, and what kind of culture would we want to create in order to support the strategic imperatives that we had. So on the top, you see, this is what we call our house. We also wanted to make it simple for everybody to understand. And this is now we're in our third 3.5 years of having launched this. We came up with our purpose to unlock the potential of people's lives. That is very simple. It's not complicated. We have a vision where a world where oral health is a source of confidence. And then we've got our mission and strategy. We play in 4 segments, but we have 2 key enablers. On the top is high performance culture, and then on the underside is digital transformation. These are our two big levers to drive strategy forward. And then clearly culture remains a big piece, and we went through the whole process of redefining what were our beliefs. And I'll show you a bigger version of this slide. But I want to go back to how did we even come up with new beliefs? So we looked at the trends. We went into a session with our board and we said, okay, based on everything you know and believe about our industry, what is changing in the world out there? What's coming towards us? And we had 3 main buckets that showed up. We had said, so normally you think, we sell to dentists and dentists work, but now we have orthodontists. We have companies that are acquiring dentists called the dentist service organizations. So the profile of who's the customer, and sometimes we're even going direct to consumer. So what is the consumer is changing. So around the customer piece, we had customer consolidation. And think this is now post-COVID. Everybody stared at Zooms and Teams and looked at their teeth and said, "Oh my God, my smile no longer looks good." And you've had situations where I am now taking an interest, no different from pharma. Where can we get the best treatment? How much does it cost? Who's the best guy to give it to me or female to give it to me? How does this compare with competitive offers? You can do this in the marketplace. Online has seen just a huge explosion of awareness of what the consumer, still not where we need to probably be, but in the last 5 to 6 years, we've seen this explosion. The second piece is around product technology. And here we have two pieces. One is commoditization. Remember, we are a premium implant maker, but there is a lot of competition out there. So the question is, it's only a matter of time, and we need to figure out how to stay innovative and competitive in the marketplace. And the other one is digital transformation. This is just, it swallowed all of us, I think, in the last 3-4 years, even more, post 2008 with the launch of the iPhone, but even more now. Social political, we had 2 points. We had the call for sustainability and social responsibility that's coming in. And the other piece is around generation shift. You're no longer talking to the gray-haired man who wants, sorry?
Arctic blonde.
Okay, sorry. Wants to have his implants. But you've got my 19-year-old daughter who's looking at aligners and it's 50 euros a month and she can get her teeth aligned because it gives her a better smile for her Instagram post. It's perfect. So there is a big generation shift in who can afford treatments or who should even be coming to your clinics for treatments today. So that was a little bit of thing. Now, if you think this is true of the world, how would you want to create an organization? How should you create a culture of how your people should react and navigate these trends in the world? That was a little bit of the thinking that we did. So we went to the word belief, and there's been a lot of debate. Should we call it mindset? Should we call it behavior? Again, language is I think, super critical. And we went, if you think about a belief, simple way of thinking about a belief, I think about it in the sense, I'm from India. India is a corrupt country. When I go out, I will carry money in my pocket that if I get stopped by a cop, I can bribe him and get my way out. That is the belief in India. And I navigate the world according to that. And are prepared that you will have to bribe your way out of situations because people's incomes are just not enough to survive. So you will. So beliefs are our interpretation of how we expect things in our environment to behave. And based on that, we wanted Straumann Group employees, everybody, to really understand what this meant. So in doing so, what we did was, we have a phrase that comes from the journey number 1, and it talks about, this is still very much foundational to us. Beliefs drive behavior, behavior drives culture, and culture drives results. It's not going to happen without that. And it's a piece of work that we continue every day to work on. I'm not saying the journey is done, but we're super proud. But let's talk a little bit about the response of which beliefs we put into place. Now, remember I said we had 2 models. We had the HB&I and we had the player learning. And we said, okay, we've got to bring this together in the beliefs and we've got to be able to respond to the trends. So how do we come up with something that's really simple and meaningful for our people? So you will notice at the back, the new belief structure we put in place has the it, we, and I dimensions. It has the customer obsession in the center, which is the changing landscape of customer consolidation. It's got the entrepreneurial mindset and agility and decisiveness on the it dimensions. And reason being, we've proven we are entrepreneurial. We did amazingly well in the years from 2014 to 2020. And it's something we want to retain. But what we know is the trends that are coming our way are going to require us to have even more courage and be able to really sharpen the entrepreneurial edge. On the right-hand side, we've got agility and decisiveness. The speed at which change is happening right now in the industry, as well as through digitalization, is gone are the days when we can take 2 years for a project. So the statement says we strive for true impact through progress, not perfection, because speed matters in our business. So each of the beliefs tries to state, in response to the trends and what our business is doing, what do we believe in, And then we ask people to really think about it. On the left-hand side, we've got the we dimension. We've got two very important pieces. One is driving engagement, which is about collective success. Many of us are not rewarded on individual results, but on economic profit. And that's massive because they've gotten away with the ratings do not influence your bonus payout at the end of the year. It's going to be the overall performance of your unit that's going to engage with it. And the next one is psychological safety, which was super important for us. We said we create environments where everyone has a voice and a contribution to make. So how are we going to really bring this to life? We called it psychological safety, which is also kind of bold, I think, from our perspective. Yeah, we get that's the one where I think we have the most work to do. We're very good, but I think we can do better. The I dimension is true player learning. It's taking ownership. It's this piece of, we are accountable and keep our promises and deliver on expectations. That's true player learner, as well as we are hungry to grow, and with the grow and develop, with the humility and curiosity to learn from each other. No one person can do it anymore. We're going to have to learn from each other in order to navigate the trends. So that's a little bit of the rationale why the beliefs came out. And we launched these now in 2021, September 2021. What has happened since? Just to give you a sense, when we were doing it, I mean, this was not done in a vacuum. We actually went and plotted the beliefs back to the blue behaviors that we wanted. And we were trying to make sure that there's consistency in what we will measure in the future can tell us how are we doing related to the category of beliefs that we have. We continue to measure it. We engage, we use Glint, just like MSD does. We had an engagement score of 81, which was 2 basis points more than the 25th top percentile score. This year is the same, whereas the score is actually dropped. The global benchmark has dropped to 78. So for us, we're super proud. We have a 91% response rate in our engagement survey that we look at, and we have specific categories that we can map clearly back to our culture, to psychological safety, to development, to manager effectiveness. So there's a lot of thought that went into whether we have a benchmark or we have an internal target. I'm going to show you a short clip. This is about a year ago. I just sat with the board and I said, okay, how would you describe player learner in the organization? So this is now not scripted, from the heart, as some of them responded to us. Do you think you can just press play for me?
I get asked that question a lot when I'm interviewing people, and they always ask me, what's the culture really like?
I believe it's not what you put on papers, it's something what you feel.
The high-performance player-learner culture of the Straumann Group is really unique, and obviously it has developed over the years.
If I were to describe this culture at Straumann and just joining from another company, what stood out is the player-learner mindset.
It has evolved with the people joining, it has evolved with the different leadership role modeling that we were wanting to do, and that's a very, very unique part of our organization.
Now I think there's a real challenge for all of us to continue to learn, to continue to evolve, to continue to improve, not just as individuals, but as a group as a whole.
However, it's not just about learning, it's very much also that we have to do it. It's not enough to know it better, it's always important also to play, to act, to do it better.
Culture in the Straumann Group is a lot about entrepreneurship, about sizing opportunities, thinking big, and wanting to create an impact. We all want to keep our destiny in our hands, and for this we need to make sure that we are anticipating the trends. We are going to be creative and finding solutions for our customers.
Product excellency, customer excellency, but then at the same time also explore the unknown, yeah, and make sure we succeed in that area.
But this goes along with decisiveness and agility. In order to get there, in order to fit with the different trends we are seeing on the marketplace, one needs really to have the agility to start, fail, start again, and really learn from that process.
In the end, we are going to work to develop a solution that it's going to exceed our customers' expectations.
Now, if we flip from the IT business side, I think the second big strength of our culture is on the people side. And the people side, meaning the we and the I side, where I believe it's an amazing contribution to the growth of our organization if we make everyone very successful in what he does.
This company really walks that talk, and the focus that it has in helping develop its employees, both professionally but even as importantly personally, is something that is amazing.
Living our cultural journey, this is really embrace the team and be a team member rather than a boss, and strive for our results and strive for our engagement. And at the end, for me, a high-performance team is bringing all our core beliefs to life.
Culture is the glue between us.
Whatever position you have from a department standpoint, are you facing the customers or more on the back office side? Are you higher in the rank, or are you just a single contributor? Everyone has so much to learn, and we have all to develop together. With individuals or alone, we cannot move mountains. But as a team, we have really proven that we can almost create miracles. This is who we are. We are the Straumann Group, and we are proud of our high-performance player-learner culture.
We've done a hell of a lot of work in the last 2 years to continue building on it. And it's just, like I said, we've got the foundational concepts remain. So the history, the heritage we're proud of has come forward with us. But then we've looked at onboarding, offboarding. We've got in our learning management system, in our engagement survey, we've started to try and connect the dots. So when you have interview guides, how we embedded the beliefs, as well as we have leadership expectations in our work levels, in our code of conduct. So we've picked up elements of it. We redesigned some culture programs, and I have another slide, the last one before I end. But then there is also this, just to give you a sense, normally when we have a big leadership meeting, so the CEO speaks, usually the second session is culture. It's not, and then usually the last word will be about culture, about how culture is going to matter to in order. So it's not, if sales kickoffs will always have culture, regional meetings have culture, so town halls have culture, and others are doing it. It's not that I need to be there or the CEO needs to be there. I think the regions, is it everywhere? In some areas more than others. Clearly, those are areas we have to work on. We've got a manager effectiveness score, which has the key components of what every manager is measured on. So we have a benchmark that we want to aim for. And at this point, we're super proud of the results we're delivering and the growth that we're driving. I wanted to just maybe leave this as an example. When I say we have programs, so when you join the company, within the first 3 days, 4 days, you will go through a culture onboarding. Anywhere in the world, translated into the languages, that's something that we've put in place. So we've got, within a month, you will go through a player-learner workshop, which is a 4-hour virtual workshop or face-to-face, where we talk about amygdala hijack, where we talk about how you can have your response. So it's very much part of the language. Within 6 to 9 months, you go through something called an I and we workshop, which is where you focus on your own individual iceberg and you deep dive. You talk about inclusion, you talk about trust. And following that, you can go through a choose inclusion workshop if you want to explore more, because that's the foundational piece to psychological safety. And then we have the Leadership Academy, which continues to build. We have for starting managers, we have Manager Essentials, and then we've got Leadership Academy. And that's how we continue to work on the journey, measuring what we do. And that's who we are. All right. That's a phrase that comes from Johnny number one, and I think it's still very true for us in who we are. Thank you.
Do you have time for questions?
Sure, if we have time. I mean,
I had two.
yeah.
So the Straumann case is a great example of a culture journey that's transitioned from the initial leader who began that journey to the new CEO.
Yeah.
That kind of leadership, senior leadership transition is historically a risk for culture journeys for a variety of reasons. Do you have insights into why that was able to transfer from one CEO to the other in a way that was enabled that journey to continue in such a positive way?
So I think we in fact have discussed this topic. I think it's very clear that if a CEO for Straumann is appointed, it has to be someone who's a great, one of the greatest supporters for culture. Because of the value that we've seen, that how culture, we believe culture is a competitive advantage. We stand out when we go to symposiums or we go to conferences. A lot of customers will tell you they deal with us as a, compared to our competition. So when we were talking, I think I asked Alistair this question once, saying, could it have been anybody else? And no, it's very intentional, the choice we will make for CEO. And it remains that way. Plus, Guillaume was part of Marco's leadership team.
Yeah.
So he had undergone the journey with Marco. Other question?
Second question is one of the most common we get, which has to do with culture development and the impact on financial performance.
Yeah.
And that's challenging to measure, it depends on the industry. And a lot of times when we find those connections, which we consistently do, it's information that the organization wants to keep very confidential because that's now our secret advantage against the competition.
Sure.
Can you speak to how culture development has contributed to financial performance?
I think there is again, this is a topic we have debated. Sometimes you get shocked and say, wow, you look at the results and say, oh, that's amazing. Or you go through the engagement results and say, wow, that's amazing. I think there's an element of how you're doing as an industry. This is one of the companies that is on a massive growth path with, huge ambitions to continue growing. And that helps to make sure. I think the true testament comes when things are not going so good. So we had to go through during COVID, we had to let go of a certain number of people. But the amount of gratitude we got back, even though we were letting go of people, the farewell messages were very generous. So they say that the true testament of culture is not in the good times, but in the bad times. And for us, we are still working hard to do a financial correlation analysis. We haven't been able to accurately do that, but if I do, and we are able to share that with you.
Yeah, I understand the challenge. Very good.
But we have about 8 metrics that we track. We have monthly metrics in terms of completion of program, completion of, so there's a lot of data in the background that we're trying to now be able to harness and be able to put together to establish that we're okay.
Yeah.
But there's no pride. I mean, there's pride, but there's no arrogance. I think this is work in progress every day.
Yeah,
That's very true.
That's the journey forward.